Welcome back to Dan Recaps. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Branded, released in the year 2012. The movie begins in the Soviet Union as a young boy named Misha stares at the stars and spots a cow-shaped constellation which he feels is staring directly at him. Frightened, he tries to run away but is struck by lightning. Later on, when he wakes up, an elderly woman from the crowd examines him and predicts his life will be an interesting one. It is now many years later, and Misha is a popular marketing executive who is highly applauded for his marketing skills that seem to skyrocket the sales for any brand he works with. During an award ceremony, he meets Abby Gibbon, the niece of his longtime friend Bob Gibbon, but Bob does not approve of their meeting. Later on, when Misha visits Bob in his office, he once again asks him to stay away from his niece. Meanwhile, marketing guru Joseph Pascal heads a meeting of fast food representatives who are seeking a way to increase their falling sales in Russia. As the companies are willing to do anything to get their money, Pascal pitches that he will change the standard of beauty for people to make unhealthy the new fabulous, and everyone will want to eat fast food. Elsewhere, Misha has been hired to promote a reality TV show called Extreme Cosmetica, in which a plus-size woman is to undergo surgery to reduce her weight and become slim. We then find out Misha's backstory and how he discovered his talent for marketing soon after the fall of the Soviet Union. After his graduation, he joined a liquor store and helped boost their sales with his great ideas, but was fired for demanding a raise. This incident made him rethink his path, and he decided to start his own advertising agency instead. Soon, he met Bob, a US marketing executive who hired Misha to expose Russians to Western brands. However, this opportunity came with a catch, as Misha had to agree to be an informant for the US intelligence as well. In the following years, Misha created groundbreaking marketing campaigns, especially a fast food chain company called The Burger that he helped spread across the country in no time. We then see Misha meeting with Abby again, and he tells her about the history of marketing, calling Vladimir Lenin a pioneer in the field. Misha also claims that communism was the first true brand that spread across the globe, and it was all due to Lenin's impressive marketing strategies. After spending a lot of time together, Misha and Abby begin to fall in love. When Bob once spots them making out in Misha's car, he confronts him and punches him in the face, but this does nothing to dissuade Misha. At work, Misha and his team have finalized the casting of a plus-size woman to take part in their reality show. However, when the woman panics the night before her surgery, Misha brushes it off and orders the team to proceed. Abby and Misha celebrate the successful shoot, but they soon receive word that the woman had fallen into a coma after her surgery. The incident sparks public outrage, and people start questioning the beauty standards that make women undergo such dangerous procedures. Misha is held responsible for the incident and is brutally arrested by the police. When Misha is finally released, he calls Abby to tell her everything that has happened, but learns she is already at the airport and planning to leave Russia. Next, Misha visits Bob again and argues that the show was sabotaged by the big fast food chains, but Bob denies this, saying they don't have the resources to pull it off. As a frustrated Misha prepares to leave, Bob suddenly suffers a heart attack and dies. The entire situation makes Misha believe his talent for marketing is in fact a curse, so he gives up everything and moves away with no plan to ever return. We then see Pascal celebrate with his team over successfully achieving the first step in changing the beauty standards. He assures his team that no one can stop them now, and in no time people will stop worrying about gaining weight and indulge in fast food all the time. It is 6 years later, and Abby has come to Russia in search of Misha. When she finds him living in a remote area herding cows, she tries to convince him to come back, but Misha says the world is a better place without him in it. That night, Misha has a dream where a voice tells him in order to understand the meaning of his life, he must perform a ritual. The next morning, he decides to follow the voice from his dream and leaves a note saying goodbye to Abby. Once outside, Misha spots a red cow and slaughters it before bathing in its ashes, but then passes out from exhaustion. When Misha wakes up, he finds himself in Abby's car back in Moscow, where Pascal's ploy has brought upon a revolution. Already surprised by his surroundings, Misha is afraid to see strange creatures representing the brands, but no one seems to see them but him. Abby takes him back to her apartment to meet her son Robert, who is also a fast food enthusiast, but Misha is too distracted by these strange creatures to notice. Misha tries to explain his visions, but Abby does not believe him and storms out after an argument. After doing some research, Misha discovers that the red cow ritual cleanses oneself from the sin of touching a corpse and purifies the soul so it can see things that others cannot. A few days later, Misha is out with his family and once again sees the creature surrounding Robert as he buys his favorite hamburger. As the visions grow stronger with time, Misha panics and impulsively destroys the apartment. When a noticeably upset Abby confronts him about this, Misha claims he figured out that it was the fast food corporations that were responsible for the woman's coma, so they could popularize unhealthy eating habits and are now destroying people's lives. Although Misha tries his best to articulate these theories, Abby thinks he just needs to see a doctor because his mental condition is not stable. Many deaths are being reported in Russia, and although no one knows the reason, Misha sees the brands taking over and attacking everyone. This causes him to have a panic attack where he hurts Abby, making her scared of his strange behavior. When Misha comes back home that night, he discovers Abby and Robert already moved out of the apartment, leaving him alone once again. Now determined to rebuild his life, Misha rejoins his agency and starts working as a marketing executive again. One day, he meets with the Chinese vegan restaurant representatives who are seeking his help to promote their brand in Russia. Misha first advises them to launch a beef fact check to scare people off his unhealthy effects. The campaign turns out to be a success, and people become more concerned with consuming meat. However, many are also against this campaign and even manage to get it banned in the country. The Chinese delegation expresses their disappointment with Misha over the outcome, but he reveals it was just a starting point for their goals and advises them now is the time to launch their vegan restaurant in the country. As people have now grown scared of consuming meat, the restaurant, Dim Sung, becomes an overnight sensation. With people's newly found love of the plant-based diet, Misha watches the fast food brands fight with each other. Misha then calls Abby and explains everything to her, claiming that the burger will go bankrupt in just a few days, and when it does, she has to accept that he is not crazy. Meanwhile, the fast food representatives try to arrange another meeting with Pascal, but he is struck by lightning. Just a few days later, and the burger files for bankruptcy, making Abby believe Misha was right about everything. Experts now start questioning the future of the fast food industry now that the beef scare has gone global. A conference is held where Misha shares his thoughts that the growth of brands has gotten out of control and there is no longer free space to introduce new concepts. These thoughts raise further questions about the question of ethics in creating advertising campaigns that help popularize things without considering the outcome. One night, as Abby and Robert enjoy dinner with Abby's friend John, Robert watches Misha on TV, being credited for his efforts to dismantle the system which allowed this mass gaslighting to take place. Misha addresses the media about his upcoming meeting with the president, where he plans to discuss a full ban on advertising campaigns in the country. Then, Abby and Robert continue to watch as a massive explosion shakes the scene. Later that night, Misha calls Abby to say goodbye. Being unable to reach her, he sends her a message saying all his efforts were in vain. Misha now thinks Abby was right all along about his mental health and would have been better off if he had just consulted a doctor. He confesses he holds himself responsible for the woman's coma, but tried to do his best to make things right, but in reality had done the opposite. He also proceeds to blame himself for the explosion that night that had killed many people. Later, Abby comes to find Misha at his advertisement agency and assures him that she still loves him and he has done nothing wrong. As the pair confess their feelings for each other, protesters raid the agency. Misha tries to flee from the building but is surrounded by the mob as they destroy his office. Misha gets struck on the head and falls to the ground as Abby overhears the president announcing a full ban on advertising in the country. As the government begins removing billboards from the streets, Misha watches happily in the hospital while he plays with Robert and Abby. The movie ends as the woman finally wakes up from her coma and roams around the advertising-free streets of Moscow as a new era has begun. That was all from the video. Subscribe for more content like this and leave a like to help the channel out. Also, leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Take care.